So y'all's first question is, how do you keep God at the center of your relationships? Don't all start up.
I think for us, in Thomas household, we have, as we've recently just changed churches, we had to figure out what ministry looked like for us in a different atmosphere. Just because she left her only church that she known, her home church. I've now at this point transitioned, like this is like my second or third church since I left home and went to college, and now I'm here in Atlanta. As we found ourselves in the new church home, we've had to establish in ourselves, just kind of like reconnect in a sense, because again, we've had to find ourselves in new ministries and figure out what it is that we're interested in church. And so for us, like we have had discussions, and so now we're like, we'll try to do like Bible studies in the house, and again, just trying to again incorporate deepening our relationships together, because we know how to do it individually, excuse me. And so what we're now trying to do is figure out like how can, as a union, especially being freshly married, like freshly, like so new, trying to figure out how we can now incorporate that together, because again, we're still trying to figure this out. So
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I would say just in this last season of our life, and joining together, that has looked completely different than what we thought it was going to be when we came into our marriage. And so I would say just learning how to have a different type of relationship with the Lord, not only like in our marriage, but just as individuals has looked completely different. And so I think with all of the different transitions, with us getting married, with us changing churches, job transitions and all of those things, we've just had to learn how to lean on the Lord in a different way than what we thought we were going to have to in this season. So
I think two words that come to mind is grace and patience. As God has grace and patience with us individually, He definitely has grace and patience with us together dating right now. And we definitely talk about that a lot. Like, hey, in that moment, I don't know if that was the best. Here is how I think we can move forward from that. Open communication is something top tier for us, like top, 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 top. And even with watching sermons together, like we'd be like, ooh, that was a word. Like, woo, like we be geeked off that. So like that it became bonding. And so we bond heavily over God and just learning more about each other as we grow individually and together.
Yeah, I'll say this. The grace is one-sided because it's her giving me grace often. And the mercy. But I think from my perspective of our relationship is one way we keep God at the center of our relationship is keeping people out. I feel like the African guy from oftentimes, whether it's at church or at work, or well, I work at the church, but any other space, even with family, I feel like the African guy from barbershop, mind your business. Like I, I'm really, I'm really a very, very private and introverted person. And when I am focused on Taylor, I simply want to focus on Taylor. I don't want the opinions of anyone else's parents. One good thing that my mother taught me and my brothers before, and it's a lesson that she learned in her marriage that she cherished. When she moved, or when my parents got married, they moved to Mississippi, and they're from North and South Carolina. So they were 12 hours away from their parents, their support system. So they had to build their own support system. They had to figure this thing out themselves right after they got married. But my mother said something to me before that I'll always cherish. She said, plant your own garden so you don't have to worry about anyone else's roots or anyone else's weeds. So keeping God in means keeping people out.
That's a tattoo. Plant your own garden so you ain't got. That's a good one. I like that.
that's a thing.
It's permanent.
Yeah. I'll say for us is prayer. I mean, in every situation that we've experienced within our relationship, from boyfriend and girlfriend to fiance, being engaged, prayer has been on the forefront. I can just give you a quick story, not too long, but even we're untraditional, right? We recently purchased a house almost 2 years ago, and we did it, she assumed that it was going to be as a boyfriend and girlfriend. But I knew that God had told me that, hey, if you're going to make this next step, you need to put a ring on it and become engaged. And so I proposed in the new house. But when I proposed, I pulled out a scripture, or not a scripture, but I'm really big on manifestation and writing down my goals and putting it in the Bible and praying over it every year. So 2017 was a prayer I'll never forget. And I had asked God, and I listed out all the qualities I wanted in my wife and a woman. And I pulled it out and I read it to her. And I said, 2017, this is what I want. And from that day on, when I proposed, she said yes. We moved forward. But even to this day now, like even before we go to bed, the main thing we have to do is pray. I could be mad at her, she could be mad at me, but we'll get on that floor, we'll pray, we'll look at each other and might be like, all right, I'm a little sour, but but I still love you and we're gonna get through this. So,
And I will say, y'all, he manifested and prayed about that in 2017 and then met me 2 years later. So God was just working with him. Yes. And I really appreciate that out of him. I would definitely say for me, for us, the one way that we keep God at the center of our relationship is that we acknowledge him in every single thing. And that's going to sound so cliche, but when I say we acknowledge him, when we start arguing, I always tell him, I say, you know what, baby, that's the devil right now. The devil's in the neighborhood. He sees we're doing good. We were happy. We've had a really great week. We're doing great with work. And why am I upset because you didn't wash the dishes? Like, and then we try to find the core. Now, let me tell you, the arguments are deeper than that. But, I try to find the core of, so where's my anger or my hurt coming from? And then I just think by us literally stopping and acknowledging, hold on, you're not talking to me like I'm your fiance. You talking to me like I'm the enemy. Let's reel it back in and understand that, we will be husband and wife. And when we say I do to each other, that means that we're also agreeing to be one, which means we're not oppositions. We are on the same team. And so we literally acknowledge God every chance we get and in everything, so that it reels us back to reality to understand that, hey, if we saying I do for the rest of our lives, that has to be something where we can't sweat the small stuff and we can't forget God in the small stuff either. He's not just there for the big leaps. He's there for the tiptoes, So, yeah.
To your point, I would say that's what it is for us too all the time, like remembering that it's God that brought us together. And I mean that literally, because we actually tried dating once before at a time when like spiritually we both were not in the best place, and it just did not work. It did not work. I think we went on 3-4 dates. Yeah, it don't. We went on a couple of dates. We tried, and we knew like there was something about this person. I just couldn't like leave them alone. But I knew that yes, I knew that I knew that spiritually, I wasn't where I needed to be, and he wasn't where he needed to be. So as we both got closer to God individually, and then sought him together, our relationship worked. So in everything now, that's really what we do. Like remembering, okay, if it's God that brought you together, you have to do everything else in the same way. Acknowledge him, remember him, and serve him in what you do. And I think nothing makes you realize where you are in your relationship with God than being in relationship with other people. Because now you got to see all your flaws, all your faults, and then say, I want to do better. So it is, I think it's one of the most beautiful experiences you can go through, but I'm not saying it's easy. Yeah.
I think, like my wife said, I was gonna like summarize it and just say how we kept Christ at the center of our relationship was like it was a necessity that we then made a priority. And that's basically like what she just said. Like it was a necessity because if not, then we were going to continue to go opposite ways or veer back and then go back the opposite way or whatever the case may be. That we knew then, okay, we got to lean on him. We got to trust him. We have to submit to him together. And then it became a priority because we understood that, okay, we didn't get here on our own. No possible way we got here on our own. And so now to keep us together, to stay together, to continue to grow, the Lord has to be a priority. And it's as simple as that, right? In theory. Now in practice, we still working it, right? We're still growing, we're still doing. But yeah, it was a necessity that we had to make a priority.
So good. That was just amazing. And I want to piggyback off of like something that I heard. It's like, what do you guys tell yourself on the hard days? Like, what do you guys tell yourselves on the days that it's not easy? Um, and like, how do you like continue to move on from that?
I know. I say on those hard days, I say, I just need you right now. I don't need your solutions. I don't need you to save me. I don't need you to protect me. I just need you. And when I tell him that, and we actually have a code language, when it's something, when it's a hard day, we look at each other and we say, homeboy, homegirl, which means remove emotion. Because if you're my homeboy, you're my best friend. I'm your homegirl. I'm your best friend. Remove emotion when I'm what I'm about to say next. So we literally start a lot of conversations with homeboy, homegirl, what's up? And then we go into it so like I know not to take offense because it's easy to take offense. Even when you shouldn't, it's easy to take offense because the person closest to you always gets the biggest lash out from you, right? And so we do that. Or the opposite, if I forget to say homeboy, homegirl, and I'm wilding out, he always, without a shadow of a doubt, quick on his feet, he'll say, and cut. He'll let me know, hey, you acting right now. Because that ain't even who you are. You acting. He does. And so, so on those tough days, we really and it throws us for a loop when the other person says it. Cause I don't say and cut a lot because he's a little more chill than I am. I'm the drama. I'm the problem, sometimes. But I don't mind that because he still loves me through it. And he still says that and cut. And I prefer that before he responds with all right now, and he got to get on his 10 toes and get tough guy. No, he's very gentle and he respects that. And I love that we have our own little love language, if you will.
I was gonna say that I just remember that our marriage is answered prayer. So when it's like a hard day or we're trying to have a difficult conversation, in the moment, like let's say we're trying to talk and it's not going well, or we're turning left and we need to go right. I'll say, all right, Lord, like I prayed for this and you honored me with this gift. Like what do I need to do differently in this moment? And to your point of the emotion thing, like sometimes in the moment, I just have to be quiet and listen to what he's actually saying. Because there are times I can admit I will try to rehearse my response like while you're still talking to me. And so I'm not actively listening to what it is that I'm not actively listening to what it is that you're saying. And so now I've learned to just pause, to just wait. And then ultimately, even on the hard days, like when you ask God for something and he gives it to you, trust that he's going to help you steward it as well. So even when it's hard, it's an answered prayer, God. So just help me maneuver. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think I am very similar, Chris. I literally prayed for this. I did the homework. And I had to make sure that I was ready. I was very specific in my prayers. And somebody who's been staring me in the face for a little over 2.5, 3 years, I was like, oh, for real? That's me? Okay. And to this day, it is still a little like, wow, this is my life. But again, I have to go back to what I prayed for, because to hear my own father tell me, oh, yeah, if you had to paint somebody, that's Taylor right there. Like, that is who she wants and needs. So on days that, again, yes, yeah, he talked about, he gives me a lot of grace, more than I could ever imagine. And I have to remember that, yes, it's cliche, all this gooey stuff, but literally, I love this man. I love him. I don't love what he can do for me. I don't like, it's the plus now.
Yeah.
Princess life on the way. But no, seriously, like, I love him. And on days that I may not like him, it doesn't last long because we literally communicate 25/8. Like, literally the other day I said, I'm getting on your nerves, am I? He was like, not really. And in response, like, he'll do the same thing to me. I'm like, no, I'm not frustrated with you. I'm frustrated at the situation. And we talked through it. It is hard. It is hard. Like, yes, we're dating, but we have been having tough conversations, even in the friend stage, even when I wasn't thinking twice about this man. But at the same time, God, I know what he's doing back here. I know what he is doing back here. But fast forward, like literally, like I know this is my best friend at the end of the day. So now that we're together, it's like, oh, bet I get to do life with my partner.
Yeah.
So, like that was beautiful. Thank you. You know, I think Taylor and I have not had a lot of difficult times, and that's a change for me. And so, even when we started dating, she looked at me one day and said, "I feel like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop." And she said, and I literally looked in her face. I said, "Yeah, I am," because I've been in spaces where things were too good to. It felt like things were too good to be true, and I believed it anyway. And then I realized why I shouldn't have believed it. I can't think of a time where Taylor and I have argued. We talk all the time, so I guess that mitigates a lot of things. But even in those difficult moments, I take the time for me. The way I get through it is I try to hold myself accountable. I ask myself, "Is it me?" Rather than you should have. It was you. You made me feel this way. I take a moment. I'm big on looking myself in the mirror and saying, "Is it me?"
Both of us.
And I don't know whether that's a trauma response or what, but it's been helpful in this relationship. This relationship has been a reminder. Who said this? There was a pastor that said, "You don't fall from grace, you fall into grace." And so mistakes I've made in the past and horrible relationships I've been in, I've stumbled into something that has been so beautiful. And so I'm no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like she told me, here go all the shoes right here. But the difficult moments, it's where I hold myself accountable because I hold her in such high esteem, and I never want to make her feel like I'm coming down on her. And because I know I have triggers from my past, I don't want her to ever feel that. You know what I mean? I don't ever pull those triggers and hit the wrong person. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I commend you on that because that is a tough role as a man to step into. Being two imperfect people and trying to bring each other together with your own traumas and try to work through that and try to appease them and then them try to appease you is hard work. I'm big on therapy, but my
Amen.
first therapy is
Hallelujah.
God. So that's the first person I turn to, is God. But I think that grace piece is very important because I look at all of the great things that we've had throughout our relationship. And then, when we have our bad moments, it's like, I'm angry, you're angry, but I want to do life with you. You're the person that I want to continue to do life with through the good and the bad. So extend that grace and keep it moving. And God will be in the center of everything, and we're good.
This is so good. All the feels. I will say, I think my next question for you guys is like, how was love modeled for you growing up? How do you live in that? And then how have you chose to like shift the narrative for you in your life?
For me, it was like if I could use the love languages.
No, you believe in it.
Do I believe? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Whatever. The motto was like showing up, like being present, being consistent. Um, my mom, like she kind of gets on my nerves with it now, but like she always had to like touch us, like look on it. She'll do this thing where she'll ask us if we good. She'd be like, "Hold on, let me see your eyes. Like, are you really good?" Right? And I think like all of those things are examples of like just an intentional love. Like she was very intent on the things that she did to show us above, like, you know what I'm saying? Like her being my mom, my dad, being my dad, then being married, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was very intentional what they wanted to do and what they wanted to show us and what they wanted to give off to us. And so like that's how I try to love Krista now. Like it's very intentional. I try to do as much as I can. Like some people be laughing at me or laughing at us because like I don't want her to do nothing. And like it's gotten worse since she's been pregnant. But like I remember one time we were walking through the airport and I had like 6 bags. Easy. I'm talking about like this is before we checked the bags at baggage claim. Like I had like 4 suitcases, my backpack on the back, her backpack on the front, and she was just walking with her sweatsuit and her phone and looking. I know people was looking at us, but like I wouldn't have had it any other way because I was being like intent about like what I wanted her to know that like I'll carry it if need be.
Glory.
Okay. Okay. Look, I like that. Yeah.
I would say for me, love has always been surrounded by me, even though I grew up in a divorced household. But I am the middle of 11 kids. So, like literally, love is family to me. If I had to think of love, I think of family. And family doesn't mean blood. It doesn't mean, it literally, I give off love. I am love. So, yes, I did see things that did not look like love. Like the biggest thing for me is how you talk to people. Tone is huge to me, like huge. And so, what I want to display moving forward in my relationship, I want him to always know that he is loved. Like I said earlier, I do not love what you can do for me. I don't love what you can buy from me. I love you for you. You are my safe space. And I know he tells me all the time I'm his. So, like, that is love to me, that somebody you can let your guard down and truly be you.
I'll say for me, that's one thing I've struggled with. Excuse me. Kim has asked that question before. Like, I come from a divorced household, so I've seen my parents remarried and how they are with their new spouses, and so for me, it's been difficult to kind of figure that out, to figure out like what does that look like? And so I think for me, I'm learning every day and I'm still practicing. And I really do appreciate the fact that she gives grace and that works with me because again, as we're sitting here even thinking about it, I almost didn't pick up the mic and say something because I don't know. But I think that's what, as I'm looking at it, has made me who I am. Like, and I think that, I don't know how well of a job I'm doing. I would have to ask Kim, of course. It seems like we're doing good. We're married, obviously, but it's been one of them things like, dang, like, where did I learn this stuff from? And, I try not to compare it to TV shows. I hate doing that. I knew not to do that because I knew that's not reality. But, I wish, as I continue to go, I definitely, look at my peers and see how they're doing. And I look at different, of those older than me who are doing it and see, try to take from there, but yeah.
I would say, if I can say about like relational love, the biggest example that I had were my parents. They were married up until my dad passed. They were married for like 40 something years, child, a long time. But for me, what that looked like was longevity, loyalty, and just like showing up every day, and choosing to continue to love the person in our marriage. That's how I show him love. If I can go back to the last question about, what we do on the hard days, like, well, girl, what's the other option? Because you just got to keep showing up, and not like I'm making a list or, like longevity just means like, you just keep going until you can't go no more. But I'm going to keep showing up for him because that's who I chose and that's who I love. And so, yeah, I think that's what it looks like for me.
Wow. Well, I'm going to say one, I'm very inspired by what everyone has said because I am the complete opposite of everyone on this couch. I did not grow up with either of my parents, both living, but I did not grow up with either of my parents. I was raised by my grandmother who is divorced. And so, but they were divorced before I was born, right? And so I've always just known like my single well, actually, let me take that back. Grandma, I love you. She was married twice. And so was born when she was with her second husband. And so I was raised in a household with both my grandparents, my step grandfather, I guess, He was Pawpaw. Okay.
Right.
That's Pawpaw.
Yeah.
Pawpaw Irwin, rest in peace. And so I was just raised by both of them. And for me, to be very, very honest, I grew up not knowing who my father was, but knowing that he didn't want to be a part of my life. And then knowing who my mother was, but knowing that she just couldn't raise me the way my grandmother could. So the way I saw love was just through one woman. And my grandmother had to be a father, a mother, and both my grandparents. Like she had to be about 4 people wrapped in one. And every time I saw the way that she just loved me, despite of, and even when I made mistakes, and sometimes I come off ungrateful because I'm looking at someone else's, what would you call it, garden, I think we talked about earlier. I'm looking at my friends who are growing up in a two-parent household. I'm even envying friends that grew up in a divorced household because at least your parents are with you, right? So learning how to love just came from my grandmother loving me despite me not being grateful for what was in front of me. And so in our relationship, I just really believe I carried that from my grandmother. I love my man, despite what we are going through, despite if I'm not feeling loved by him or respected by him, because we're human. You're not going to feel loved and respected by your partner 24/7, right? And so I just believe that because being raised by Lady C, as I affectionately call her, she's just shown me what it's like to love despite of. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was great, babe. I'm on the other side, so I was raised by a single parent, my mother. So she was the first person to show love, of course, and she gave a lot of love to us, me and my older brothers and my younger one. But the men that she chose to be in her life to date were not the best. And so I kind of took that and said, this is not how I want to love a woman, because I see my mom hurt. So I don't want this to be a trend for me. So I took that like, no, I don't want this. But I do want to be able to pour love, as she said, as an example for us. So I took that and I try to do the best I can with her and pour that love into her and be that man that she needs. That's it.
No, you will wait.
So let me encourage y'all real quick. So pay attention to one another. I'm someone who was married and divorced. And when I talk about, mistakes that I've made, it's like, dang, why did I make that decision? Pay attention in these stages. In this stage when you're engaged, focus on each other. What is she like? What is he like? And learn how to adjust. The model that I had was from my parents of partnership. We're gonna do everything together. I remember as a child, even even if they were fussing, they were doing it together. Where they're arguing about the bills, or arguing about the next steps to take in terms of a move of a house, or selling of a house, whatever it may be. They did it together. And yeah, I didn't pay attention to that in my first marriage. Don't pay attention to what they say, pay attention to what they do. She wanted to be, I'm gonna leave that alone. I didn't pay attention in my first marriage. So when Taylor's talking to me about you waiting for the other shoe to drop, it's because I'm attentive to her. I'm attentive to not only to her needs, but to how she moves. And so not only do I see that partnership in my parents, I see it with Taylor and I, and it's very, it makes me feel at home. And even with my brothers, love was modeled a different way. My oldest brother, he just couldn't stand the younger brothers. He was just in his own space, and he wanted us to leave him alone. Me and my middle brother, we were fighting all the time. But say something happened in the neighborhood, the Williams boys were sticking together. So no matter what's going on, it's me and you against the world. And I learned that from my brothers. I learned partnership from my parents. And even those sitcoms that we used to watch. I learned that partnership from watching Martin and Gina and Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv and Harriet and Carl. So, you know, those are still good lessons if they promote. Harriet! Carl!
They were the best example to me.
Yeah, they were. Carl was the feds.
Carl the feds.
Carl was the feds.
Yeah. I would say from my parents, I learned like the 2 F's. I call it the 2 F's, friendship and forgiveness. They were engaged when my mom was 18 and married at 20. So, and when I was a kid, I didn't realize how young that was until I now sit here at 27, like, you were married for 7 years by this point. Wow. And I remember like at the breakfast table, they'd be like laughing with one another, making jokes about one another. Ooh, what's going on with your hair today? Or just like random funny things. But they were also very affectionate at the same time. So it clearly wasn't like a platonic friendship. And so I was in a 2-parent household. Then they got divorced. Then they got remarried when my dad got sick. And that was the ultimate, I think, example of forgiveness, because both of them had to realize that all the things that we have went through, ultimately, I still love you and you still love me. And while I'm still here, you know, let's spend this time together. And my dad surrendered all the things he thought he couldn't before in that time. And so for us, I think the biggest thing is, like, number one, he's my best friend, like in everything that we do. And now that my mom, she's remarried, the biggest thing that they always teach us is you have to be pulling in the same direction. Like, just like what y'all were saying, no matter what we're doing, no matter what we're going after, if we have the same goal, if we're trying to go in the same place, everything else will work. But if I'm trying to go here and you're over there and we can't find the middle, like, eventually you're just going to keep growing apart. So just make sure that you communicate and figure out what that line is. So that's what I learned.
Well, thank y'all. I think that honestly, like, this was a beautiful example of just love. Like, you guys touched on every capacity of like what it means for you, the good, the bad, the not so good. So thank you. And I believe that is a